Silas wasn't always tragic. He remembered sunshine on golden wheat fields, the smell of rich earth after a spring rain, and the happy laughter of his wife, Martha. But that was before the drought. Before the well ran dry, the crops withered, and Martha, before she got sick. Now, his farm was just cracked earth and broken dreams. He'd lost everything, his land, his livelihood, and the woman he loved. The bank took the farm, the neighbors whispered, and Silas felt the weight of the world pressing down on him. He was alone. Completely, utterly alone. The once vibrant colors of his life had faded to a dull gray. He felt like a scarecrow, abandoned in a barren field, with no crows left to scare. So, he decided to leave. He couldn't bear to stay and watch the slow death of everything he held dear. He packed a small bag with a change of clothes, a loaf of bread, and a rusty old knife. He walked away from the only home he'd ever known, his heart heavy and his future uncertain. He was a tragic farmer, indeed, but he didn't know that his story wasn't over yet. The road stretched before Silas like a gray ribbon, unwinding into a hazy horizon. Each step was heavy, a reminder of the weight he carried, the weight of loss, of failure, of a future he couldn't imagine. The sun beat down on his weathered face, mirroring the harshness of his circumstances. He walked for what felt like days, the landscape blurring into a monotonous mix of dry fields and scrubby bushes. His stomach growled, a hollow echo in the vast emptiness around him. He rationed his bread carefully, knowing he didn't know when he'd find another meal. At night, he slept under the stars, using his bag as a pillow. The cold seeped into his bones, and the silence was deafening, broken only by the occasional howl of a coyote. He longed for the warmth of his old farmhouse, for the comforting presence of Martha, but those were just memories now, ghosts that haunted his waking hours. He felt utterly hopeless. He wondered if he should just give up, lie down by the side of the road, and let the sun take him. But something deep inside him, a tiny spark of resilience, refused to let him surrender completely. He kept walking, driven by a faint, flickering hope that maybe, just maybe, there was something better waiting for him at the end of that long, gray road. The sun was beginning to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, when Silas's weary legs finally gave out. He stumbled, catching himself on a gnarled old tree beside the road. He sank to the ground, his body aching, his spirit drained. He closed his eyes, imagining Martha's face. Her smile, the way her eyes crinkled at the corners when she laughed. He missed her terribly. A tear escaped and traced a path down his dusty cheek. As darkness deepened, he noticed something in the distance. A small figure, sitting by the side of the road, near a cluster of rocks. At first, he thought it was a trick of the light, a mirage born of exhaustion and loneliness. But as he focused, he realized it was real. Someone was there. Curiosity, or perhaps just a desperate need for human contact, stirred within him. He pushed himself to his feet, his muscles protesting with every step. He started walking toward the figure, his heart pounding with a mixture of apprehension and hope. Could this be a sign? A chance encounter that might change his fate? He didn't know, but he had to find out. As Silas drew closer, the figure became clearer. It was a woman, sitting cross-legged on the ground, her back straight and her posture calm. She wore a long, flowing dress of deep blue, and her dark hair cascaded down her shoulders like a waterfall. Even in the fading light, Silas could see that she possessed a quiet grace. Beside her sat a worn leather-bound book, its pages slightly yellowed with age. It looked ancient, as if it held secrets from a forgotten time. The woman's face was serene, her eyes closed as if she were meditating. Silas hesitated, unsure whether to approach. He didn't want to intrude, but the loneliness that had been gnawing at him for so long overwhelmed his reluctance. He cleared his throat, his voice raspy from disuse. "Hello?" he said, his voice barely a whisper. The woman's eyes fluttered open. They were a startling shade of green, filled with a depth of understanding that made Silas feel both seen and strangely vulnerable. She smiled, a warm, welcoming smile that eased some of the tension in his shoulders. "Welcome, Silas," she said, her voice soft and melodic. "I've been expecting you." Silas stared at the woman, bewildered. "Expecting me? How could you possibly know who I am?" Elara, as she introduced herself, simply smiled again. "Some things are meant to be, Silas. Some paths are destined to cross." She gestured to the ground beside her. "Please, sit. You look weary." He hesitated for a moment, then gratefully lowered himself to the ground. His legs ached, and the simple act of sitting brought a wave of relief. "I have water and bread," Elara offered, reaching into a small satchel. She handed him a clay flask and a piece of bread that smelled of honey and herbs. Silas accepted the gifts with a mumbled, "Thank you." He drank deeply from the flask, the cool water soothing his parched throat. The bread was delicious, far better than the stale loaf he carried in his own bag. As he ate, he studied Elara. There was an air of peace about her, a sense of inner strength that radiated outward. He couldn't quite place her. She seemed both ancient and ageless, wise and innocent. He wondered who she was and what she was doing alone on this desolate road. But more than that, he wondered why she knew his name. The silence stretched between them, comfortable and unspoken. Silas finished the bread, feeling a little of his strength return. He looked at Elara, his eyes filled with questions. How did you know my name?" he asked again, unable to contain his curiosity any longer. Elara's green eyes twinkled. "Let's just say I have a way of knowing things. But it's not important how I know. What's important is why you're here, Silas. What brings a farmer like you to this lonely road?" Silas sighed, the weight of his grief settling back upon him. He hesitated, unsure if he could bear to speak of his pain. But there was something about Elara, a sense of trust and understanding, that made him want to confide in her. I lost everything," he began, his voice thick with emotion. "The drought, it took my farm. And, my wife, Martha, she got sick. There was nothing I could do." He looked down at his hands, ashamed of his failure. "I couldn't stay there anymore. It was too painful." He braced himself for pity or judgment, but Elara simply listened, her gaze unwavering, her expression filled with empathy. When he finished, she nodded slowly, as if she understood the depths of his sorrow. "I understand, Silas," she said softly. "Sometimes, life deals us blows that feel impossible to bear." "And what about you, Elara?" Silas asked, tilting his head. "What brings you to this road?" Elara's gaze drifted towards the horizon, her expression becoming wistful. "I, too, am running from something, Silas," she said softly. "A past that I can no longer bear." She paused, as if deciding how much to reveal. "I made mistakes, Silas. Big ones. And I hurt people I cared about. I needed to leave, to find a way to make amends, to find a new path." She didn't elaborate, but Silas sensed a deep sadness in her voice, a burden she carried within her heart. He didn't press her for details. He understood what it was like to be haunted by the past. They sat in silence for a few moments, each lost in their own thoughts. Then, Elara reached for the worn leather-bound book beside her. "This," she said, holding it up, "is how I plan to rewrite my story." She smiled, a hint of mystery in her eyes. "Perhaps it can help you rewrite yours, too." Silas frowned, skeptical. "Rewrite my story? With a book?" He couldn't see how a simple book could change the harsh reality of his life. Elara smiled knowingly. She opened the book, revealing page after page of blank parchment. "This isn't just any book, Silas," she explained. "This is a book of possibilities. A place where we can write our own futures." Silas stared at the blank pages, confused. "But, there's nothing here. It's just empty." "Exactly," Elara said. It's waiting to be filled. Waiting for you to write your dreams, your hopes, your desires. Whatever you write here, with true belief, can come to pass. Silas scoffed. That's impossible. You can't just write something down and expect it to happen. Can't you? Elara challenged gently. What have you got to lose by trying? What's the one thing you truly desire, Silas? Write it down. Let's see what happens. She held out a small piece of charcoal. Go on. Write. Silas hesitated, turning the charcoal over in his calloused fingers. He didn't believe it would work, but Elara's unwavering gaze and gentle encouragement chipped away at his cynicism. What did he have to lose? He took a deep breath and looked at the blank page. What did he truly desire? It wasn't riches or fame. It was something much simpler, something that had been taken from him, the life-giving rain. With a shaky hand, he wrote a single word on the parchment, rain. The charcoal scratched against the paper, the sound amplified in the quiet night. He looked at the word, feeling a strange mix of hope and foolishness. It seemed so insignificant, a single word against the vastness of his despair. Elara smiled. Believe in it, Silas, she said softly. Believe that it's possible. The stronger your belief, the greater the chance it will come to pass. Silas didn't know what to believe. But as he looked at the word rain, a tiny flicker of hope ignited within him, a spark that had been dormant for far too long. Maybe, just maybe, Elara was right. Maybe he could rewrite his story after all. The next morning, they set off together. Silas wasn't sure where they were going, but he trusted Elara. They walked side by side, sharing stories and offering help to those they met along the way. Silas found himself using his farming knowledge to assist struggling families, showing them new techniques to conserve water and improve their crops. He remembered the joy he used to find in nurturing the land, and a sense of purpose began to stir within him. Elara, in turn, used her wisdom and the power of the book to inspire hope in those who had lost it. She would listen to their troubles, offer guidance, and encourage them to write down their own dreams in the book. Sometimes, seemingly small miracles would occur, a sick animal would recover, a broken tool would mend itself, or a lost child would be found. Silas couldn't explain it, but he saw with his own eyes the positive changes that Elara and the book brought to the lives of others. He started to believe that maybe, just maybe, there was something truly magical about it. And he began to feel a glimmer of hope that perhaps he, too, could find healing and a new beginning on this journey. They arrived at a village nestled in a valley, where the fields were barren and the people were disheartened. The villagers had tried everything to coax life from the dry earth, but nothing seemed to work. Their faces were etched with worry, and their hope had dwindled to almost nothing. Silas felt a pang of recognition. He knew that look of despair. He'd seen it in his own reflection for too long. He and Elara knew they had to help. Silas spent days walking the fields with the villagers, examining the soil, and assessing their irrigation methods. He suggested planting different crops that were more drought-resistant, and he showed them how to build simple terraces to conserve water. He remembered techniques his grandfather had taught him, long-forgotten wisdom that now seemed invaluable. As he worked alongside the villagers, Silas felt a familiar warmth spread through his chest. He remembered the satisfaction of planting a seed and watching it grow, the joy of harvesting a bountiful crop. The passion he thought he had lost forever was slowly returning. He looked at Elara, her eyes sparkling with encouragement. I think we can help them, he said, a smile spreading across his face. I think we can bring this village back to life. That evening, after a long day of work, Silas saw Elara sitting by the well, the leather-bound book open in her lap. He approached her cautiously. What are you doing? He asked. Elara looked up, her eyes shining in the twilight. I'm adding some details to your wish, Silas, she said, gesturing to the page where he had written rain. He leaned closer and saw that she had written more words around his single wish, gentle rain, nourishing the earth, bringing life and abundance to the village. It's not enough just to wish for something, Silas, Elara explained. You have to believe in it, visualize it, feel it in your heart. The more specific you are, the stronger the connection becomes. She looked at him intently. You have to truly believe that rain is possible, that this village can thrive again. Silas looked at the words, feeling a surge of hope. He closed his eyes and imagined the rain falling, soaking into the dry earth, bringing the crops back to life. He imagined the villagers smiling, their faces filled with gratitude. He focused all his energy on that image, imbuing it with all his hope and belief. I believe, he whispered, opening his eyes. I truly believe. The next morning, the sky was a brilliant blue, without a single cloud in sight. Silas tried not to be discouraged, reminding himself that belief was a process, not an instant result. He continued to work alongside the villagers, tending to the crops and nurturing the soil. Around midday, a gentle breeze began to stir, and a few fluffy clouds appeared on the horizon. The villagers paused their work, their eyes fixed on the sky. Then, a few drops of rain began to fall. At first, it was just a sprinkle, barely noticeable. But then the drops grew larger and heavier, and soon a gentle shower was falling upon the village. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Silas looked at Elara, who was smiling serenely. He looked at the villagers, their faces lit up with joy and amazement. He looked at the rain, soaking into the dry earth, bringing life back to the parched fields. It wasn't a torrential downpour, but it was enough. Enough to give the crops a much-needed boost, enough to replenish the dry wells, enough to restore hope to the hearts of the villagers. Silas felt tears welling up in his eyes. He couldn't believe it. The rain, it had actually come. It was a miracle. News of the miracle spread quickly, and soon people from neighboring villages were seeking out Silas and Elara. They traveled from town to town, sharing their story and offering hope to those who had lost it. Silas, now filled with confidence, showed farmers how to cultivate even the most difficult land, sharing his knowledge and inspiring them to believe in their own abilities. He taught them about crop rotation, composting, and water conservation, empowering them to become self-sufficient and resilient. Elara continued to use the book, encouraging people to write down their dreams and believe in the power of their own thoughts. She helped them overcome their fears and limitations, reminding them that they were capable of anything they set their minds to. Together, they became beacons of hope, spreading a message of empowerment and self-belief. They showed people that even in the darkest of times, it was possible to rewrite their stories and create a brighter future. Silas, once a tragic farmer, was now a symbol of resilience and possibility. He had found a new purpose in helping others, and in doing so, he was healing himself. One evening, as they sat by a crackling campfire, Silas turned to Elara, his eyes filled with gratitude. "You've helped me so much, Elara," he said. "I don't know where I'd be without you." Elara smiled, a hint of sadness in her eyes. "We've helped each other, Silas. You've reminded me of the importance of kindness and compassion." She paused, then continued, "I wasn't always like this, you know. I used to be trapped by fear. I was afraid to take risks, afraid to speak my mind, afraid to love." She explained that she had lived a life of quiet desperation, always playing it safe, never truly living. She had allowed fear to control her, until one day she realized she was wasting her life. That's when she found the book and learned that she had the power to rewrite her own story. "It wasn't easy," she admitted. "It took courage to face my fears and make the changes I needed to make. But it was worth it. I'm finally living a life that feels true to myself." She looked at Silas, her eyes filled with hope. "And you can do the same, Silas. You already are." Silas listened intently to Elara's story, her words resonating deeply within him. He realized that he, too, had been allowing his past failures to define him. He had let the drought and Martha's illness consume him, blinding him to the possibilities that still lay ahead. But now, After everything he had experienced with Alara, he understood that he wasn't defined by his past. He was capable of creating a new future, a future filled with purpose and hope. He still grieved for Martha, but he knew that her memory could be a source of strength, not a burden of sorrow. He looked at his hands, calloused and worn from years of farming. These were the hands that had once tilled the soil and brought forth life. They were also the hands that had helped rebuild a village, that had offered comfort to those in need. He smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. He was no longer a tragic farmer. He was a healer, a teacher, a beacon of hope. He had rewritten his story, and he was just getting started. The world was full of possibilities, and he was ready to embrace them all. One morning, they reached a crossroads. Two paths stretched before them, each leading in a different direction. Alara stopped, her expression thoughtful. "This is where our paths diverge, Silas," she said softly. Silas's heart sank. He had grown to rely on Alara's wisdom and companionship. He couldn't imagine continuing his journey without her. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice filled with concern. "I have to follow my own path now, Silas," Alara explained. "I have to face the challenges that await me, the demons I need to conquer. I need to do it alone." Silas nodded slowly, understanding her need for solitude. "Will I ever see you again?" he asked. Alara smiled, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "Perhaps. Our paths may cross again when the time is right. But for now, we must each continue our journey separately." She reached out and took his hand, her touch warm and reassuring. "Never forget what you've learned, Silas. Never stop believing in the power of hope and kindness." Alara reached into her satchel and pulled out the worn leather-bound book. She held it out to Silas. "This belongs to you now, Silas," she said. "Continue to use it to help others, to inspire hope, to empower them to rewrite their own stories. Never forget the power that lies within these pages, and within yourself." Silas hesitated. "But, what about you? Won't you need it?" Alara shook her head. "I have learned what I needed to learn. The book has served its purpose for me. Now, it's your turn to carry its message forward." She placed the book in his hands, her fingers brushing against his. "And never, ever stop believing in the power of hope, Silas. It's the most powerful force in the world." Silas clutched the book tightly, feeling the weight of its importance. He looked at Alara, his heart filled with gratitude and a tinge of sadness. "Thank you, Alara," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I won't let you down." Alara smiled, her eyes sparkling with tears. She turned and started walking down one of the paths, her blue dress disappearing into the distance. Silas watched her go, knowing that their lives had been forever changed by their encounter. He knew he had to continue her work. Silas took a deep breath, feeling a newfound sense of confidence and optimism. He looked down at the book in his hands, its worn leather cover a testament to its power. He knew what he had to do. He chose the path that felt right, the one that led towards the rising sun. He wasn't sure where it would take him, but he knew he was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. He was no longer the tragic farmer who had lost everything. He was Silas, the healer, the teacher, the beacon of hope. He walked with a spring in his step, his heart filled with purpose. He carried with him the knowledge and skills he had gained over a lifetime of farming, the wisdom and guidance he had received from Alara, and the power of the book to inspire belief and transform lives. He was ready to make a positive impact on the world, to help others rewrite their stories, to spread the message of hope and kindness. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but he was no longer afraid. He had faced his fears, and he had emerged stronger and more resilient than ever before. His journey was just beginning. Silas walked for many days, his spirit soaring with each step. He finally came to a valley where a small community of farmers was struggling to survive. Their crops were failing, their spirits were low. He shared his knowledge of sustainable farming practices, teaching them how to conserve water, improve the soil, and plant drought-resistant crops. He showed them how to work together, to support each other, and to never lose hope. He also shared the story of Alara and the magic book, encouraging them to write down their dreams and believe in the power of their own thoughts. He held workshops where they could share their stories, express their fears, and support each other's hopes. Slowly but surely, the community began to transform. The crops started to thrive, the people began to smile, and hope began to blossom in their hearts. Silas had found his purpose, and he was making a real difference in the world. He wasn't just a farmer anymore, he was a leader, an inspiration, and a friend. Years passed. Silas continued to travel, helping communities thrive and inspiring hope wherever he went. He never forgot Alara, often wondering where her journey had taken her. He carried her wisdom in his heart and shared her message with everyone he met. The worn leather-bound book became his most prized possession, a constant reminder of the power of belief and the importance of kindness. He filled its pages with stories of hope, resilience, and transformation, creating a legacy that would inspire generations to come. Silas was no longer the tragic farmer who had lost everything. He was Silas, the beacon of hope, the man who had rewritten his story and shown others how to do the same. He proved that even in the face of unimaginable loss, it was possible to find new purpose, to embrace new beginnings, and to create a future filled with joy and fulfillment. His life was a testament to the power of the human spirit, a reminder that anyone, no matter how broken or lost, can rewrite their story with belief and kindness. And that, Silas knew, was a truly magical thing.